All right, so you're here for the Zodiac, huh?
Looks like.
I bet you've heard the name,
Oh, yeah,
but want to go deeper than just the basics, right?
definitely.
This case, it's been ice cold for over 50 years.
Crazy, right.
And still, people are obsessed.
I get it.
Why is that? What is it about the Zodiac that still grabs us?
Well, it's more than just a whodunit, you know?
Yeah.
He wasn't just committing these crimes, he wanted to make a spectacle of it. He was playing this game.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone was caught in it.
Everyone.
The police, the media, just everyday people.
Wow. Everyone.
Okay, so let's rewind to the very beginning then. December 1968.
Okay.
A lover's lane,
Mm-hmm.
Vallejo, California.
Isolated.
Really secluded. Two teenagers, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday,
First victims.
become the Zodiac's first victims.
Yeah.
Tragic, obviously.
Of course.
But what's important about this, for a
Mhm.
serial killer, this seems like a typical first crime. What's so significant? I think the location itself is really important.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't random,
Okay.
not impulsive. He picked that spot.
Uh-huh.
It was isolated, no witnesses, easy to get away.
Makes sense.
That level of planning, that tells you something.
Right.
This is a calculated mind. That's chilling.
And things escalate from there, right?
Oh, for sure.
The Zodiac ends up claiming at least 5 murders,
At least.
but it's the communication that's what sets him apart.
Totally.
Chilling letters
Yeah.
sent to newspapers, describing the crimes in detail, bragging about others, even promising more to come.
Taunting them.
And these letters, they weren't just confessions, right?
No, not just confessions. He was controlling the story, inserting himself into the investigation.
Wow.
The Zodiac was obsessed with fame. He used fear and intimidation to create his own legacy, a twisted one.
Okay, but these letters, they weren't always easy to understand.
No, not at all.
He included ciphers, coded messages, daring anyone to crack them.
That's right.
Some have been solved,
Yeah.
revealing details about the crimes, but others are still unsolved,
To this day.
even now. It's crazy to think that one of those unsolved ciphers, it might hold the key to his identity.
It's possible.
Ciphers, man.
Yeah.
They're so complex.
They have been used for a long time, actually.
Honestly?
Yeah. Ancient Rome, the World Wars, you name it.
To hide information.
Sensitive information. Yeah.
Huh. So what does it tell us about the Zodiac?
It suggests that maybe he was trying to prove he was smarter. You know?
Like, I'm smarter than all of you. You'll never catch me.
Exactly. But breaking a cipher, even for experts, it can take years, decades even. You analyze patterns, test algorithms, piece together tiny bits of information. It's painstaking.
I can't even imagine, like some giant morbid crossword puzzle.
Yeah, something like that.
So they have these crimes, the letters, the ciphers. But who was this guy?
That's the question, isn't it?
One of the main suspects for years,
Right.
Arthur Lee Allen,
Yeah.
a convicted child molester. His profile fit in some ways, and some thought his handwriting matched.
There were similarities.
So was it him?
Allen was definitely a strong suspect. But the evidence, it was all circumstantial, never enough to actually charge him. He lived under suspicion, a difficult life,
Yeah.
and died in 92,
Still a suspect.
with the shadow of the Zodiac hanging over him.
It's almost like even if he wasn't the Zodiac,
Right.
that suspicion was its own kind of punishment.
Absolutely.
But the investigation didn't end with his death.
Yep.
Fast forward to 2021,
Okay.
a group of cold case investigators, they
Interesting.
come up with a new name, Gary Francis Post.
Post.
They say he looks like the sketches and that some photos might link him to the letters.
This is where things get tricky.
How so?
Eyewitness accounts, sketches from 50 years ago,
Yeah.
notoriously unreliable.
Oh, come on. Really?
Think about it. Memories fade.
Yay.
Details get distorted. Faces change.
Over time, sure.
Decades. We can't take those as proof.
Right, I get that. But then, how do we evaluate suspects?
Yeah.
What tools do we even have in a case this old?
Well, this is where technology can really help.
Okay, yeah.
Imagine you use facial recognition software on age progression photos of Post
Yeah.
and compare them to the Zodiac sketches.
Interesting.
It's not perfect to keep everyone on edge, you know?
Like he was addicted to the chaos, the fear.
Exactly. And the public's reaction. Headlines, the manhunt, the desperation,
Fed right into it.
fuel for his ego.
So this fits into that narcissistic personality disorder theory.
It does. These individuals, they crave attention, they have to feel superior, and they often lack empathy for the victims.
So it wasn't just about the murders themselves.
Nope.
It was about how those murders made him feel. Powerful, important.
Exactly. The Zodiac, he didn't just want to be a killer, he wanted to be a legend. Remembered, feared, even admired for his intelligence.
And the fact that he was never caught adds to the mystique, right?
Absolutely. Vanished without a trace, outwitted everyone, reinforces that image.
Criminal mastermind.
Exactly.
Almost like he became this boogeyman, you know?
Yeah.
A symbol of our fear of the unknown.
Think about it. His crimes took place during some pretty intense times. Vietnam War, civil rights movement.
A lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear.
Exactly. And then the Zodiac, random violence on top of it all. Amplified it all.
So he was tapping into a fear that was already there.
Yes. He became the symbol of the darkness that people were already afraid of, and because he was never caught, that fear, it lingered, still lingers in a way.
That's like his ghost is still out there. Like he could strike again at any moment.
Powerful image, right? Speaks to the impact of trauma.
Trauma.
Yeah, both individual and societal. The Zodiac's crimes weren't just isolated events, they left a scar on a whole generation.
Wow. So we've talked psychology, the social context, but what about the future of this investigation? Can a case this old even be solved? I mean, we have DNA technology now that wasn't around back then.
That's definitely a point of hope. As DNA technology gets better, it opens up all these new possibilities for cold cases. What if investigators could get a DNA sample from a crime scene or from some piece of evidence? You could compare it to databases, familial DNA, all sorts of things.
So you're saying there's still a chance?
Absolutely. Technology is always evolving.
Yeah.
And so is our ability to solve crimes. But it's not just about the tech, it's about the investigators, their dedication, being willing to look at old evidence with fresh eyes, and the hope that someday a new clue will surface and crack this case wide open.
It would be amazing to finally put a name and face to this mystery.
It would.
Bring some closure to the families of the victims. Finally put those fears to rest.
It would be a victory for justice, absolutely. But even if the Zodiac's identity remains a mystery, the case itself, it reminds us of the darkness that's out there and how important it is to never stop searching for truth and accountability.
Okay, but let's shift gears a bit. We've covered the facts, the suspects, the psychology. What about the impact of this case on a broader level? It's been over 50 years, but people are still fascinated by the Zodiac. Why?
I think it's the power of the unknown. You know, the Zodiac case, it taps into our deepest fears, our fascination with the dark side of human nature.
Yeah, like he represents that monster hiding in plain sight. The idea that anyone could be capable of these things.
And that's terrifying, but also kind of compelling, right?
It's like we can't look away from a car crash, even though we know it's awful.
Exactly. And the Zodiac, he was a master at playing on that morbid curiosity. He knew how to use the media, how to craft this persona that would capture everyone's imagination. He wasn't just a killer, he was a performer, a director of his own horror show.
It's like he understood how powerful a good story is, even if his was a story of violence and terror.
Exactly. And that's why we're still telling it, right? Books, movies, documentaries, podcasts like this one. He's become this cultural icon, a symbol of our fascination with the macabre.
But it's more than just fascination, isn't it? The Zodiac case, it really changed things for law enforcement, for forensic science.
Oh, absolutely. In a lot of ways, the Zodiac investigation, it was a turning point in how these kinds of cases, serial killer cases, how they were handled.
Right.
It forced law enforcement to adapt, develop new techniques, profiling, evidence analysis, even how they communicate with the public.
So it's kind of like the Zodiac's legacy is both positive and negative.
I think that's a good way to put it. His crimes were horrific, the pain he caused, there's no measuring that. But his case, it made us face our own vulnerabilities, pushed us to get better at investigating, and forced us to acknowledge that dark potential in humanity.
Yeah. It's a heavy thought, but important. So, as we wrap up our deep dive into the Zodiac Killer, what's the one thing our listeners should really take away from all this?
I think the most important thing to remember is that the search for truth, for justice, it never really ends.
Even in a case this cold.
Especially in a case this cold, new evidence could come up, new technologies could be applied, new insights could be discovered.
So there's always hope, even when it seems impossible.
Always. And to the listener who's really dug deep into this case with us, keep digging, read everything you can find, watch the documentaries, go down those internet rabbit holes.
Yeah.
You might just find something everyone else has missed. A detail, a connection, a missing piece of the puzzle.
That's what's so captivating about this case. It's still open.
Yeah.
We can all be part of the investigation, you know.
Exactly.
Question everything. Keep that hope for justice alive.
The Zodiac may have wanted to control the narrative, but in the end, it's up to us to decide how his story ends.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Zodiac Killer case. We've looked at the facts, the theories, the psychology, the whole impact of this unsolved mystery.
And remember, the search for answers goes on. Keep asking those questions, keep exploring, and never forget the human stories at the heart of it all.